part two. So just real quick, if we look at Psalms 33, I believe I was going to start with verse 10, but I thought, oh, no, I should back up. So when I said that the notes that I send you after this talk, Kurt, is going to be kind of jumbled, it's because I started on verse 9 and I got to verse 12, and then it's like, okay, let's just kind of, instead of doing the whole chapter, just do a few verses. I jumped to 17 and 18. And as typical, because you read the English and it seems like, well, that's pretty clear cut. We'll just go into things that look like there's something hidden in there. But then you go back later and you read, even the things that look clear cut have some really great stuff hidden in there if you look in Hebrew. So then I added it. And so there's, gosh, like 6 different pages, and it looks very haggard, just so you know. Please excuse that. You'll have to put some effort towards deciphering what in the heck is going on here. But so let me just say this. If you start with verse 4, it basically says, give thanks to Yahweh. So, somebody asked me a question. Karen just told me this morning, why do you say Yahweh instead of Yahuwah? Just so you know, there's sometimes I use 4 or 5 different explanations or expressions of his name because there's a bunch of people who think it's pronounced this way or that way or this way or that way. And it's like, I'm just trying to be inclusive. Other times I'm speaking kind of quickly off the top of my head, and I don't stop, articulate his name, and then carry on. It's just a flow of thought. And I say that because from what I heard, that centuries ago, when Jewish scribes were writing, they're writing the Torah scroll. And then when they come to his name, they'll stop, they'll bathe, they'll wash their hands, they'll pick up a new pen, write his name, break the pen, throw it away, and then continue writing. And if they come up to his name again, they'll stop, they'll bathe, they'll pray, but it's like, that's a great regard of his name. I'm not knocking that, but maybe I'm just thinking too fast or something. I don't know. But just so you know, I'm not necessarily trying to be a proponent of Yahweh or Yahovah or Yahuwah or Ia-Ua, perhaps 4 sounds, Ia-Ua, Yahweh, if you say it real fast. Just so to answer the question. Anyway, give thanks. Yahuwah will always do what he said. Now, it might be translated in English a little different, but just so you know, verse 4, if you take geometry as a class in school, you'll learn that to prove what they call prove a theorem is you have to start with a given. In other words, we're not going to analyze, rationalize, or try to recalculate the given. We're going to start with a given. For example, if I say the alphabet starts with A and then B and then C in English, A, B, C, you say, well, how do you know? We're not going to argue about that. We're just going to start there so that we can move on. The other day I was having a conversation with somebody, and almost everything you say, how do you know that's true? It's like, well, that is a valid question, perhaps even a good question, but you have to start with a given that you can all agree on, or you can't get anywhere. You have to, in order to move on to where you're trying to go with the conversation. So the given in verse 4 is, you can give thanks that Yahuwah has established as a given, unquestionable. You can try to analyze it. You can try to look at proofs. If you were a lawyer in a court case, you could say, aha, but this time it looked like he didn't. But as a statement of fact, as a given, Yahuwah will always do exactly as he said. And then when you take that as a given instead of a question, does he? Will he? Let's see if we can find an occasion where he didn't. Yeah. As a matter of fact, years ago, there was a friend that I went out to dinner with a couple friends. They were both really good friends at one time. I hadn't seen them for a couple of years or something, and they were together, this man and woman. And the lady said, you know, we're all Christians. We've been going to a different couple, doing from different churches I was going to. And she said, you know, quite frankly, God's kind of like a dirty rat. You can't trust him to do what he said he's going to do. He said he'll protect you, and then your husband falls out of a tree and gets busted up. Where's the angels? Why didn't he protect you from dashing your foot against a stone? And it really had hurt her heart that her God's untrustworthy. I was kind of shocked, but I was also realizing that that's a real predicament, because you're not allowed to say so. You have to talk as if everything's wonderful. Speak as if everything, you're projecting this ideal. So why does that happen? If you go back to Psalms 33, verse 4, and it says, Yahweh will always do what he said. If your God isn't doing what he said, then he's not Yahuwah. You got the wrong God. Because Yahuwah, one way or another, whether we perceive it or comprehend it or not, the given that he has said numerous times in the Tanakh, in the whole Old Testament, besides the New, anything true has to ring true, always. He will always do what he said. And he said that's part of his Shem, his identity. He will always do what he said. Period. End of story. Even if we provoke him otherwise or don't deserve it. He even said, I made a promise to David, and so I'm going to run out world history, always invoking the promise into consideration to orchestrate human affairs. Never going to forsake the promise I made to that man. So then, if we want to say, who is our Elohim? We've got the great privilege of taking this as a given and saying, all right, if I can determine the accurate translation of a verse based on certain words, based on certain letters, not the distortions of translations, not misdirected doctrines, though perhaps well-meaning, if I can find the heart of the truth in what he's actually said by his own mouth, or told a faithful scribe to write like Moshe, then I have to, and I get to absolutely depend on it, count on it, because he said so. And he'll never recant or retract his Shem. That's the absolute of the universe. The given, that from there, everything else moves. That's verse 4. And in verse 5, he reiterates, we'll look a little closer at this in a moment, but he reiterates Zadokah and Mishpat as being, well, he doesn't say here the foundation of his throne, but those are almost like, if you got two eyes, that's what they are. Zadokah and Mishpat, they're so him. The essence of balanced scales is Mishpat. And the essence of righteousness is victory. That's it. No compromise. No question. Ever. You go to verse 6, and it talks about that by the debar of Yahweh was everything made. What's the debar? Is that he said something? What did he say? Everything he spoke that he tells us of is written in the Hebrew 22 letters. So you learn the 22 letters, you know his debar. Even his name is an expression of the 22 letters. Why did he choose the name Ehyeh? Why did he choose the name Yahweh? It's because the meaning of the letters and where the letters are located in the 22 letter sequence order. That's why he named himself. That's proof that he had to first construct, invent, design, establish the 22 letter sequence before he even assigned himself a name. Before Adam could name the animals, he had to give him a tool set by which to do it. It had to be the 22 Hebrew letters. Whether or not Adam had orthography, the writing, he certainly had the concept of each of the letters, because that's how even the word dog, kalav, kaf lamed bet, means all heart. He wouldn't have named the dog Caleb, all heart, if he didn't know the meaning of the letters or the structure of the word. So it's proof that the alphabet, the Semitic language syntax structure The structure, oh, that's a samic. The meaning, oh, that's a nun. Putting it together, you got samic nun, which is the word bush, or you get nun samic, which is the word to lift up and carry forward. Adam had to have that before he could do the job of naming the animals, which he told him to do even before he made Hua. Okay, so that's the Debar of Yahuwah. Anyway, get to verse 7. There's two words. Kaf nun samic. Hey, there's that nun samic that we're talking about. And kaf nun dalit. Look at that a little closer. Those are two words that are given a definition in most translations, but if you look at them and analyze them, there's more to it. Jump ahead to verse 10. Yahweh says he messes with human plans. He's very involved. Well, so much for the deist point of view. Sorry, Thomas Jefferson, you're wrong. Bad religion. Is it predestination? Apparently not. Apparently he acts in reference to how people act. Well, then the predestination concept of the Calvinist view is not accurate either. We could go through that list. You could do that in your own contemplations. Get on to verse 11. Ayin Zadi Tav. Then there's another word, Het Shin Bet. Lamed Bet Vav. Designs of his heart and counsel. It's talked about in 2 verses there. We'll look at that in a minute. Those are critical considerations. There's 22 verses in Psalm 33. I'm just trying to give you a quick overview. Verse 12. He has a people who are his own personal Nun Het Lamed, translated heritage. He has a people who are his own personal heritage. What a concept. None of those other points of view that I mentioned in the very beginning, other than the Torah perspective, regards that. So if David was wrong, then that's a fantasy. If David was right, then everybody else who's trying to make sense of the universe is completely ignorant, deluded, off track, wandering like blind men in the dark. Verse 15. He built the human heart. He designed the venue of what it means for Adam to walk the course of life on the face of the earth. For everything that exists to be an expression of the Hebrew alphabet, and that means human beings are also a manifest of the Hebrew alphabet. So is Yeshua, Yahusha. But that means also not only the physical, the wood, the stone, the metal, the flesh, but also the invisible things, the thoughts, the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, the fears, psychological processes, pain and pleasure, hope and dread. Those are all constructs of the Hebrew alphabet, all things that Yahweh invented, worked out the neurological processes, and built them into what we call nephesh or neshem or human psyche. He did all that. That was the work of his own hands. And then somehow he decided to have the personal experience, however that worked, whatever that meant, to come down and have it himself. Yahusha. What does that mean? How does that work? As soon as you try to give an explanation, it turns into doctrine, which we're not going to do. But the concept of that, the concept that he could design human pleasure and human angst, human love and human trauma, mentally, physically, ecstasy and terror and dread and pain. He designed and built all that and then said, hey, I'm going to come in. I built the suit and I'm going to wear the suit. What an amazing concept. Anyway, verses 16 and 17 say that from a human perspective, even war machines do not necessarily ensure the victory. Verse 18, this is kind of a exclamation point of this chapter. Behold the eye. The question is, what is the eye? But we talked about that in the last video. The ayin yod, spelled ayin yod nun. The eye, the word ayin means look to, observe, well, carefully, balance, measure, determine. It's the balancing of scales. The ayin of Yahuwah is upon Yod Resh Aleph Yod Vav. It's translated those who fear, but we did a video a few weeks ago that the word fear also means to put on exhibition or to see. Resh Aleph Hey. This is Yod Resh Aleph Yod Vav. So is it on the one who fears, or is it the one who sees him, or regards his perspective, his perception, his exhibition? This word could be seen both ways. And those who Yod, the word is spelled Lamed, means unto, Mem, those who Yod Chet Lamed, translated expect or wait, for or unto his Chet Samik Dalit Vav. The Vav suffix means his or they who, those who expect his Hesed. So for us to say repeatedly, Hodu la yuakitov, ki leolam chazdo, that's not just a statement. Yes, it's something to learn. If you wanted to learn a Hebrew phrase, it's in Psalms 136, written poetically. Every other stanza, every other line is that phrase. It's also what Solomon said at the inauguration of the temple. But it's also self-talk, telling yourself, give thanks to Yahweh. Believe he is good. Know that he's good. Know that everything he said he's going to do, he will do. If he says he's our healer, expect his healing. He says he's our protector and defender, expect his protection and defense. But we have to listen to his voice and walk in our ways. Otherwise, we have no right to expect anything from him. But what we expect, Yod Chet Lamed, is his chesed, tender loving kindness, but also refuge and protection and the place to snuggle into him, as it were. Verses 21 to 22. So this we do, yes, indeed. Verse 18 it is. So verse 18 is the critical matter. So I'm going to go quickly then, starting with verse 1. Ringing cry, shout of joy, ranenu, zadikim, righteous ones. But it also is the victory for the righteous ones. Ba Yahuwah, just so people know, the letter bet in front of Yod He Vav He, bet is a prefix letter that means in, on, with, among, through, or against, or in the condition of. And then there's Yod He Vav He. And I say that because every once in a while you'll find the letter Lamed in front of Yod He Vav He. And people say, well, is that a different word, or what does that mean? It's actually in verse 2, Lamed Yod He Vav He. But it's a prefix letter that means in the capacity of. Well, then what's Yod He Vav He? Yeah, it's his sacred Shem, his sacred name, but it also means cause to exist. So I could read this as that Bet means with, Yod means the hand, He Vav He is to exist. So you could say that by my hand, or Yahuwah is the one who enforces or cause to exist, righteousness receiving victory, or getting the victory. The righteous ones are victorious. Go back to the old Hollywood movie cliche, the white people wearing white hats win. Of course, then there was a movie about a knight, I forget the name of it, but he wore black armor. And the priests of the fake religion were wearing white robes. And they turned the whole symbolism around and had the black guys victorious because they were the good ones. They were the righteous ones, even though the stereotype is the opposite. So that's just what movies do. They mess around with things, make the movie interesting. But here the word Lamed Yod Shin Resh, that's the word Yeshar, like Jasher, like Israel, Nun Aleph Vav He, that means comely, beautiful, fitting, decorated, adorned, take pleasure in. And then the last word, tav he lamed he. Well, hello, well, that'd be he lamed vav. This is he lamed he. Same root, different suffix, but it's where you get the word halo, like the round light that's above your head. Radiant, praiseworthy, beaming. So go back. These are all 22 verses, but they're all very short verses. Just so you know, we'll try to go through them slowly enough to give you a sense of appreciation, but kind of quickly. They're ringing cry, a shout of joy, because you have to realize that Yahuwah is the one who built it such that the righteous ones have the victory. And it's fitting that it should be so, for the sake of praise, that the gem, victory, situated in such a setting as righteousness, is a beautiful concept of straight and right. And because the heart of Yahuwah is straight and right every time, he's never going to twist the way things work like a Hollywood movie might, just for stirring people's imagination of, oh, that's a different movie. Oh, I didn't see that one coming. Oh, how corrupt. And you end up feeling a bad feeling about something. Some movies just want to make you feel bad. In fact, we made this video again on Mountain Air 7 last week, and Fred said something. He said, the reason why young people take a young man might take his girlfriend to go see a scary movie is so that she'll get scared and jump on him and cling to him. And I kind of reacted. I thought, I don't think I ever had that thought. I never did that with the intent. That's pretty weird. That's somebody else's reality. It just doesn't happen in my world. But the point is, this here says, it's an expression of Yahuwah's personal character, that he determined that the way the universe works is that it should be fitting and right, that the righteous ones receive the victory, like a gemstone in a jewelry setting. What a concept, verse 1. And that is the radiant, brilliant, shining is the equivalent of, the last word is the equivalent of the first word, that we should be shouting for joy at the realization the way the place is built. So everything I was reading a while ago at the beginning of the first hour, about all these ways to try to figure out how the universe is designed, this is it, right here. Verse 2, Hodu, La Yahweh, again, give thanks and praise. Bet Kanor, well, that's on the heart. Look at the word, Bet, Kaf, Nun, Vav, Resh. Vav, Resh is the word or for light. Nun, Vav, Resh, nor, like menorah. Well, Nun is like the lightning bolt, the active, jumping out, the giving birth, the activating. So not just light, but shining light. The letter Kaf means like, and the Bet is the prefix letter that means with or through. But Bet Kaf, the first two letters as a prefix, could be read as through you or by you. So this could be give thanks to Yahweh as if you were the lighthouse, and that through you, beaming through your being, you're the menorah, not just bearing fruit, but you're the light bulb itself. You are the conduit of that praise, that ringing cry, that halo. Then the word Ben Naval, well, the word Nabal or Naval, Bet Lamed means where you get the word babble, confusion, foolish. What's going on? Nun, Bet Lamed, Nabal, acting crazy. Bet Nun is the word for son, like S-O-N. If you have a child and he's just acting goofy, he's acting so happy he doesn't have a care in the world because he completely trusts his parents. Yeah, like that. So trusting in him that we act like raving fools for having such trust and rejoicing. The word asher is 10, ayin shin resh. This is ayin shin vav resh. I'll tell you, simply means 10. So the word beneval means on the 10-string harp, or some type of a 10-string, maybe perhaps a lyre. But ayin shin resh, as we said before, like the asher devarim, 10 matters. It means to make wealthy, or to be enriched. We should be kicking up our heels in spectacular enthusiasm to understand the way the universe is built, that the righteous ones receive the victory, and that is suitable because it's Yahuwah's personal expression. To sing to him, Zimru, Lav, or Lo, Lamed Vav, can also mean sing about it. Sing about this concept. That's verse 2. Verse 3. Shir, that's another word for song. One word for song is Zion Mem Resh, Zimmer. Here's another word for sing, Shin Yod Resh. So Shin Yod Resh Vav hyphen Lamed Vav. Sing to him, or sing about his. And then the word Shin Resh is where you get the word Sar, as in Sar Shalom, means prince. Look in the dictionary, it also means a poet, a bracelet chain, a patron, minister, an angel, somebody who's in a position to take care of things. Prince, princedom. Sing to him about his patronage. Shir, song, Chadesh, a new song. So here's an interesting thing. Just an interesting thing. If you were literate and you knew exactly the way Hebrew was written, you might say this means new song. There was a church in Portland named New Song at one point. Then the next word says, Hey Yod, Tet Yod Bet Vav, and then Nagan, Nun Gimel Nun, and the last word is Bet Tav Resh Vav Ayin Hey, Be Teruah. Teruah. Hey, that's like Yom Teruah, day of blowing of trumpets. Blowing of trumpets. But this is, Ruah isn't necessarily the word trumpet, it's the word for shout. So it's the sound of the trumpet. But if you look closer, we're looking at the last word of verse 3 here of Psalm 33, Bet Tav Resh Vav Ayin Hey. Bet, prefix letter with, Bet Tav, hey, that's the word daughter. Tav Resh, that's the word to search or explore. Resh Vav Ayin, well, the Vav is like one of those wild cards, so if you just look at Resh Ayin or Resh Ayin Hey, it means to think or shout or what's in your heart. It also means to associate with, keep company, like a friend. It's also the word for neighbor, but it's also the word for evil and wicked and harm. You put all that together, the same word for evil being neighbor or associate. What's evil? When you think harm, when you plan intentional harm towards one who trusts you as your neighbor. One way to read it. But what's that got to do with Nagav? Well, Nun Gimel Nun. Gimel Nun is the word garden. To the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, Gimel Nun. It's where you put a fence around and protect and nurture it. Here it is translated composed or instrumentalist, or to play a musical instrument. So Nagan means you really tend something carefully, like a garden. If it's just food growing out in a field, it's the birds can land, wild animals can walk through, people on their motorcycles can drive through. But a garden, you put a fence, you water it, you protect it. So mindfully protecting. So the word with shouting, with thinking, searching, then the last two letters, I and Hey. Calculate how this works. Let's back up. Chadesh ha yativu. Well, if I say it's not necessarily a new song, but a Chadesh yativ, that word tet yod bet is where we get the word tet vav bet, which is tov. Each day that Yahweh made something and he looked at it in the Genesis 1, he said, and he saw that it was good. He saw that it was tov, tet, vav, bet. Tet, the round thing like a basket, and bet means house, or bet means in, or what's a bet? A basket and a house. You could ponder that word, but you could look at it as saying the basket's full. The basket's got good stuff in it. The basket has the bet and the paleo is drawn kind of like that embryo shape, which means there's life there. It's designed. This is the beginning of what's designed to grow into something that fits his beautiful imagination. Is that the thing that's being restored? So in other words, is the word Chadesh, is that in reference to the shir, the song? Or is that in reference to the goodness that he has a mind to bring forth, that we should be shouting about if we look to calculating every detail of what this language tells us, every matter of his heart? He's got this great plan. And if you catch the vision, catch the dream, and it's not like, yeah, but what if the bad guys win? What if the tribulation comes and wipes away all his plans? It can't. It won't. The given is that what Yahweh said he will do. Righteousness wins. We are his Nachal inheritance. It is his future. He is the guy that owns and operates this universe, not the devil, not the bad guys. All we have to do as his people is nurture the seed of his word in our hearts with hope and expectation, and believing it as if our action of that belief is the causal force, like a woman incubating a baby in her womb. That's the job of Israel. That's verse 3. And we should be singing about this and to him. Verse 4. Because, that's Kaf Yod, key, or so that, Yashar, straight right, Debar Yahweh. Because the word of Yahweh is the only reality. It is true. It is right. Doesn't matter who translates it or who invents a doctrine or a religion about it. The reality is the reality. Just need to find out what that reality is. The reality, the straight right, the bar Yahweh, and all, mem ayin shin he vav, all that it was made, mem prefix, kaf lamed means all, ayin shin he is to make, do, produced, bet aleph mem vav nun he. This is the last word of verse 4. Amunah. Hey, that's the word faithful. Every word of Yahweh is made to be faithful. There's another way to read this. Bet aleph means to arrive. Mem vav nun, hey, mona. Hey, that's like manon. We already talked about that word, mem nun, or mem nun nun, or mem nun hey. Aleph mem, this word is spelled bet aleph mem, vav nun hey. Aleph mem is the word not ayin mem here, but it's aleph mem. It's translated nation or metropolis, or the word if. It's also the word mother. So the act of ayin mem, seeing the fruit with the seed in it, and mem in the womb, it's similar but different. This is aleph mem. This is the word emma for mother. So you could say bet aleph, arriving, if, like a mother who's going to incubate the birth, that's mem vav nun. Nun hey then is this manifest, but the word aleph mem vav nun, amen, is the word faithful. So if they're faithful, because he will straight right accomplish every word of Yahweh. And when those who arrive at the place where we're supposed to be are faithfully doing so, another way you could read this as, if everything Yahweh said, every word, and remember at Mount Sinai, the people said, every word that Yahweh says, we will hear and we will do. So when we finally get to the point where we're faithfully doing that every word Yahuwah said will happen faithfully, how can it be nailed to the cross? How can what Yahweh said be nailed to the cross and done away with it if everything about him is that he said, even if you forget, I'll remember for you. Even if you're lied to, the truth prevails. The reality is real. classified as, will be fit with the determination of the faithfulness. So if we see the curse of the law was nailed to the cross, the phrase, the curse of the law, it's setting up in the mind of the English words that the law itself was the curse. But then if you look at what Yahweh said, he said the curse of the law is that if you break the law, you bring on death. You bring death upon yourself. That's the curse of the law. That's what was nailed to the cross. Death itself was nailed to the cross. The curse was nailed to the cross, not the law. Everything goes back to how you read. Okay, that's verse 4. If we jump ahead to verse 5, Aleph He Bet. Aleph He Bet He is the word for love. Aleph, the prefix letter meaning I will. He Bet means give. So does it mean love, righteousness, and mishpat? Or does it mean I give victory and balanced scales, tender loving kindness? Yahuwah Melo ha'aretz. Mem lamed aleph he is the word for fullness or filling. But lamed aleph is no or negative. Mem lamed aleph, the place of negative, ha'aretz. You could read this as there's nothing else. There's no place it doesn't happen. There's no place, there's no time that the tender kindness of Yahweh balancing the scales so that righteous ones get the victory. And that's what Yahweh gives because he loves it. When he designed, you might say, his own personal character, to put in the words of expression, he could have been the big, mean, ugly, bad monster guy who was so vicious and nasty that you can never trust him. He could have been that guy, but he determined to be the pure expression of love, the pure expression of righteousness, of truth, of goodness, of kindness, of balanced scales of justice. He determined that's his Shem, his reputation. And if we don't know that, so we think, sometimes the God we believe in is a dirty rat. Sorry, ain't Yahweh. You've got it wrong, or you misunderstand, or perhaps you're bringing some sort of bad mishpat, bad mojo on your own head because of the way you've been thinking or behaving or projecting. But according to verse 5, this is a fixture of the universe. Verse 6, Bedabar, at the word, or accordingly, the word of Yahweh, Shemayim Na'asho, the heavens are produced. Veberuach, it's translated, and his spirit, Pei Yod Vav, his mouth, all Zadi Bet Aleph Mem, everything sprouts. Well, the word Zadi Bet is where you get the word Zavot, Zadi Bet Aleph, which means army or host or sprout, or Nun Zadi Bet means like a knife handle plunged in, like the Excalibur, the sword stuck in the rock, locked in position. So at Yahuwah's mouth, everything just is. Zadi is a sprout. It's also a resurrection. Bet Aleph means to arrive. So I could read this, that everything that Yahweh said, at his mouth, even the dead will come back to life. And when John Wimber says, hey, when do we get to do this stuff? How come there's not people raising up the sick and the ones that fell out of a tree and get a broken back? Yahweh Rafka. Yahweh heal you. Where's the manifest? Where's the sprout, the resurrection? The word bet resh vav chet, that means with his spirit, but it also means bet resh chet means to fasten with a bolt, to pass through, flee, escape, smuggle, desert it, run away, to get from here to there, just whoa, to jump ahead. Remember they were on the Sea of Galilee, I think it was, and they were in the middle, and there was a storm that said the next thing that happens, suddenly they're at the shore. So in a flash and moment, teleport, boom. How do we get from where we are in a predicament to suddenly Yahweh's perfect promise is manifest? How do we do that? Baruch Pio, Peyod Vav, his mouth. Wow. At his word that everything was made. The word Shin Mem Yod Mem is heavens, but Shin Mem Mem means annihilation, insanity, astounding horror. In a moment, what looks like insane horror can be turned into his spectacular promise seen. Why? This whole chapter is about us singing and praising him, envisioning his vision and projecting it. We are the incubating of his seed as his Israel. Verse 7, Kaf Nun Samik, and then Kaf Nun Dalit. Those are the two words I said that we'd look at. Kaf Nun Samik means to gather. Kaf Nun Dalit means to wander. All right, so we're on verse 7, and it basically is setting up a gathering, wandering, something about water, teaching, a stored up treasury, and then the word for deep. And if you look at the standard English translation of this verse, it might make some statement other than what it's really saying. You might want to just stare at this and look at it a little.
You turned off your camera again.
What are you saying?
You turned off your camera again.
I see him.
But I'm recording. He's not here. It's 3 o'clock too. I'm pretty much out of time.
Well, gosh, I could try to jump ahead to the very significant point here.
But you're not on the screen.
Well, if you can hear my voice, maybe the screen doesn't matter. You can just do a cartoon picture of a screenshot.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm just sitting here, blah, blah, you know. Let me just, I'll try to go quickly, Kurt, but let me go on with verse 8. Okay?
Okay. It's 3 o'clock though.
I'll try to shut it down pretty soon. Okay, let me just say this about verse 7. So if we can pick here right before we end, we might have to do some next week. But it's talking about they're just like a picture of the Azore Islands in the middle of the Atlantic, well off the coast of Africa. There's this storehouse of provision in the middle of the deep that is found in the teachings that we have to believe in, that Yahweh has. Verse 8, those who fear Mem Yod He Vav He. Here's that other word. I was talking about that the devil doesn't own this planet. Yahuwah owns the universe, the world, and they that dwell therein. That's because he's the maker. Yod Mem Yod He Vav He, all the earth. Mem Mem Nun Vav, from him, financed by him. There's that Mem Nun, middle of the word that I talked about earlier. Classified, sorted, allotted, assigned, counted, numbered, reckoned, ordained, is all the word Mem Nun He. And then the word Igoru, that's where you get the word Igor, you know, like the mad scientist sidekick. That's a favorite word in a movie. It means cub, whelp, to attack, burst forth. But Gimel Vav Resh Mem, a derivative word, means cause or a factor of multiplication. All, the last three words, all who dwell on the earth. But the word tabal, meaning earth, is also means spice, confusion, or violation of the natural order. And the word shin bet is not just dwell, but it's rebel, repent, return, the root of the word Shabbat. So you could say, when people are trying to confuse the natural order with spice or AI or vaccines, when those things multiply and the cup of their iniquity is full, Yahweh has to do things according to the Mishpat. That's when he said to Abraham, you got to wait 430 years until the cup of their iniquity is full. And when the cup of their iniquity is full, he's going to take the cup out of their hands and make them drink it. We have to believe that when he said something, he'll do it. That's verse 8. Verse 9, so thus it is. The declaration exists. And just as it is commanded, it will stand, period. We have to believe that as the absolute. That's verse 9. Verse 10, Yahweh. Then there's this word peyod resh, which is a pit or a ditch, nullifies like a swamp filled with water. Etzer goyim, That's the counsel, advice, the plans of the nations. And Hey Nun Yod Aleph, wailing lament. The Mem, Het Shin Bet Vav Tav of Ayin Mim. The Het Shin Bet means band or girdle, like Yeshua wearing this gold band across his chest that John saw in the book of early chapters of the book of Revelation. That means to calculate, think, imagine, figure out, sum up, mathematical, devise, importance to, plan. So the way to read that is the inventions or the conceptual ideas, the word illustration, mem chet shin. People come up with all these great ideas, and Yahweh's just going to bust them apart. Verse 11, the same word, ayin zadi tav, his ayin zadi tav, counsel, advice, plan, decision, is forever, projected into the future of the unknown, and it stands. And what he figures out by his heart from generation to generation. And those two words for counsel and figure out and sum up are the exact same two words used in verse 10. So Yahuwah takes what the other people are doing and he does his will to completely dash theirs. And if we don't get that, then when we see their plans and hear people like the World Economic Forum or the Gates of Hell or the New World Order boys, any of those guys saying what they're going to do, not if we're doing what Yahweh says. If we're doing what Yahweh says, then he will favor us. If we don't do what he says, they get to prevail. We are the operative force if we walk in his ways and learn his words. Verse 12, Ashri, straight, right, blessed, praiseworthy, Hagoi, any people group. That's not the Goyim, that's Hagoi, any nation, and that includes the USA or Khazariot. It's not just Israel. And so people think, oh, those Khazarians, they're fake Jews. There's the synagogue of Satan. They became Jews just so they could take over the world. It's like, listen, it doesn't matter who you are or what your ancestors were. If you walk in Yahuwah's ways, you become his people, period, regardless of the genetics. There's a whole fake story going on out there, one way or the other, different matter. Those who make Yahweh their own personal Elohi and being his people because they choose to be his heritage. So this verse 12 could be read that the nation that Yahweh chooses to be his own, or the people that choose Yahweh to be their Elohim. See, again, we're given one certain way of translating, and that's all you see, but there's two different ways here. Verse 17, that's verse 12. So verse 13, what's written in the heavens, you could say, because the word Mashamayim, what's in the heavens, hey Bet Yod Tet. Bet Yod Tet is the word for aspect, habitat, or utterance, or what's Bet Tet Aleph, what's on exhibition as articulated. So the meaning of the constellations, you could say, were put there to pronounce Aleph Tav Kol Beni Ha'adam. It's you could read that from the heavens Yahweh sees all the children of men, or you could say that what he wrote in the heavens as a type of expression was for all the sons of Adam to validate the truth. So we did this study a few weeks ago on the constellations, and if you think they're Greek gods and unicorns dancing through the sky, you've missed it. If you turn that into your Elohim prophesying your future, you've completely alienated yourself. But if you read the Mazarot, the constellations, as Yahuwah expressing the same truth that's in the Torah, there's a whole different reality. Verse 14, and this is a critical consideration I wanted to get to, besides verse 18, is established, built, formulated. Mem, kafav nun. Kafav nun, where cannon, where you fix a cannon and blows, is his Shabbat. Shin bet tav vav. Hey, Shin, Gimel Yod Het. Look at, care for, gazed at, minded, supervised over, Aleph Lamed, all who dwell on the earth. This concept of a supervising authority which returns, reverses, restores, recovers, rebel against, reset. It's kind of like, this is where the verse of 14 about the Shabbat being a proprietary secret formula, the active ingredient that his people tap into if they keep Shabbat, which is one of the first things you were talking about, Kurt, at the beginning of the talk. that if you don't have Shabbat, if you don't keep Shabbat, you have no regard, or the doctrines of your organization have forsaken it, you're out of luck. You're taking a placebo. There's no active ingredient. It's in the Shabbat. Verse 15, the singular heart of an expert understanding that toward everything that's made. Again, it's going back to saying there was a singular factor, the Hebrew alphabet, the Mishkan pattern, by which Yahweh built everything, that the Shabbat is the active ingredient, the key to the whole thing, and the one who takes it to their heart to become an expert of understanding. It's exactly why we're putting on these videos, is for that matter. That's verse 15. Verse 16, there isn't a king who engages in some action without having a big army. There's no warrior that you can steal something out of his hands unless you have more strength than him. That's another way to read that verse than what they've given us. That's verse 16. Verse 17 is the horse succor Jesus. Jesus lies unto Shua, unto salvation. Don't trust Jesus to give you salvation. Jesus is the Spanish word for Jesus. Jesus is where you get the word fluttering flag or a moth, that play on words. Nor a big army cannot save you. That's verse 17. Verse 18, behold the eye, the attention, the weight that tips the scales, the factor of determination for tipping the scales. This verse 18 goes all the way back to the beginning of what we were talking about. How do you get Yahuwah's attention? How do we pull his eye unto our matters and affairs? This is verse 18, is towards those who Yod, Resh, Aleph, Yod, Vav, fear him, or those who perceptible on exhibition as he allowed himself to be seen. Those who take the matters whereby he allowed himself to be seen, like on Mount Sinai and in the Torah, and then the next word, Lamed Mem Yod Ket Lamed Yod Mem, expect or long for unto his chesed. So the whole of being his people is not expecting the tribulation or to be holocausted by him imminently. The whole upshot of being his people is to capture his vision and expect him to do it, because that's who he is. That's verse 18. The people who, verse 12, the people who freely choose or determine to be his people are taken as one's possession, being obtained by him. The same word means to nachal, to produce a swarm of bees, a torrent, a wadi, a flash for a flood, generational circuit, door la door. Verse 19, the rescue from death are their souls unto life of the, then the word, last word of verse 19, bet resh ayin, bet means voracious, hungry, starving, poor in spirit. Those who crave to be rescued by him from death unto life. Verse 20, our souls expect, the word is het, kaf hey suffix, it means fish with a hook. Those who have a taste for, have a palate for. The word het kaf also means a palate, helping us and shielding us. Ezar nu, vemegan nu, it's the same. If you're hungry, if you're craving, if you need his help, expect him to help. If you think, yeah, but what if he doesn't save us? What if he doesn't help us? If you entertain that thought, you're over it. It's done. Verse 21, because in him rejoicing our heart, for that is his sacred name. Betochunu, that we have trust and confidence and absolute insurance in. The projection of our hope is who we think he is. If we think he's a dirty rat and not going to do what he says, then we've defined our God. If we say, Yahweh our Elohim always does what he says, and what he says is he gives victory to the righteous. And righteous means doing what he says and walking in his ways. And the active ingredients is Shabbat. I'm going to keep the regard of Shabbat. How I keep it then becomes a matter of debate with your family or friends or yourself. How do we do it to really make sure we get it? How do we do it then is not a matter of doctrine and dogma and law, but it's a matter of walk it out with him. Last verse, 22. It exists. Your Hesed, Yahweh, I know it exists. Basically, you raise us up to a higher dignity, just like you said. Ka asher. Our hope, waiting and expecting, is unto you. Lacha. Okay, there's your 22. Sorry, we're at the end of time. Kurt, you got to go, but we could stay on and talk about this stuff if you want to. You want to end in a word of...
Yeah, I'm going to end it. Thank you, Father, for keeping Eric safe. Thank you for keeping Diana's husband safe. And Yahuwah, just bless these words, bless this message, and let people hear it with an open mind and open heart. There's very little difference out there between all the myths and religions. The only thing that makes this different is your Shabbat in your name. Other than that, they're all kind of the same. Father, I just thank you for this truth and waking us up to it. In Yahuwah's name I pray. Amen.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Yahweh, for your word, giving us your truth.